G'day everyone, and welcome to the 8th episode of Agony Anth, my collaboration with the Charles Darwin University Law Student Society. This week I've been asked, how do I work out how much is too much when it comes to detail in assignments and exam essays? That's a really good question because I think it's one that stumps a lot of students. Before we get to the actual question though, let's think about why it's even necessary. Why do we have word counts in assignments and time limits in examinations? I mean, what harm would there be if we allowed students to write an assignment of whatever length they chose, or if we allowed them to sit in the exam room until they're done? Well, first, there are some practical reasons. It takes more time and costs more money to mark long assignments and to keep exam venues open indefinitely. And in this year of COVID, many universities have been struggling financially. It's important for universities to manage their costs sensibly. And it's a bit rough on the student group as a whole if other students have to wait longer than necessary to get their grades because of the time taken to mark particularly long assignments. In the study of law, though, there are other reasons to learn to manage your word limits. If you enter practice, you will absolutely be expected to work efficiently. Judges become very cranky with people who take ages and ages to make submissions that could be made very briefly. Perhaps even more importantly, clients who are paying for your time in 6-minute increments, they don't want you to take an hour to write a 3-page letter when the same outcome could be achieved by a 1-page letter which you write in 20 minutes. If you take too long to do your work, often your firm will have to discount the bill back, which means essentially that you've been doing work that the firm can't charge for. That's not a great way to get promoted. So while it's perfectly okay to get frustrated with word limits, they really are there to help you become a better legal practitioner. Okay, let's come back to the actual question. How do you know when enough is enough? When a student asks me that question, what it says to me is that the student really hasn't planned their work sufficiently. Because if the work is planned properly, the amount of detail takes care of itself. Let me show you what I mean. Let's say I'm doing a 2,000-word assignment on a negligence law topic. I've been given a scenario and I've been instructed to advise the plaintiff whether their claim is likely to be successful. Now, before I even start work on the assignment, I'm going to look at a couple of things. First, I'm going to look at the course outline. Quite often, the course outline will directly tell you which weeks of material are being tested in the assignment. Obviously, when I go on to write my assignment, that's the knowledge that I most want to demonstrate. Second, I'll take a close look at the marking rubric for the assignment. This will not usually tell you the material that's been covered, but it will show you what the various grade standards look like. You'd be amazed how many students just simply don't look at these sorts of documents before they start work on their assignment. So let's start work on the assignment itself. I know, because I'm a good student and I've been keeping up with my lectures and readings, I know that I need to prove a number of things for this negligence assignment. I need to prove that there's a duty. I need to show the content of that duty. I need to show a breach of that duty. I need to show harm. I need to show that the breach caused that harm. And then, let's say in these facts, let's say I also need to consider whether there's been contributory negligence by our client. If those are the things I need to do, that's the structure for my assignment. I start with an introduction. I outline the duty. I outline the content of the duty. I outline the breach. I outline the harm. I discuss causation. I look at whether contributory negligence is an issue. Then, because the rubric is also looking for advanced understanding, maybe I should say a little something about remedies. And then I'm going to conclude. So in my assignment, I've got to do 9 things. Next, I'm going to go in and add a word count to each section. So I might say I want 150 words each for the introduction and conclusion. Let's say I allow myself 200 words for the extra bit about remedies. And for each of the other 6 sections, I allow myself 250 words. Now, suddenly, I don't have one assignment to write. I've got 9 little ones, most of them just 250 words long. We're going to ignore the introduction and conclusion for the moment. For each of the other sections, we're going to do a mini IRAC. So when we outline the duty, how are we going to do that? First, we'll have a topic sentence, something like, the first step in establishing liability for negligence is to consider whether there is a duty. If there is no duty, there is no negligence. Crikey, there's 25 words, or 10% of this section already gone. Next, I'm going to introduce and briefly discuss any relevant statutory provision and at least one case. This shows the examiner that I've done some research and some reading and I know the authorities. So I might say that the duty of care in the Northern Territory is established by common law, and I might cite the classic Donoghue and Stevenson as the authority. If I'm clever, I'll add in just a little bit of context so that I can convince the lecturer that I really have read the authority. Or a key quote. You don't want to use too many, but the occasional quote is a good way to go. So at the end of this bit, I will have used up most likely around 150 of my 250 words. I then move on in the IRAC model and apply the facts to the law. Personally, I always do this, including when I'm writing submissions for actual court. I always use the key phrase, in the current case. So in the current case, X has a duty to prevent harm to Y as a result of X's operation of her motor vehicle. Then I conclude. In consequence, there is a duty of care arising in this matter. And that sets me up beautifully for the topic sentence of part 2, which will be, having established that a duty of care exists, the second step is to identify the precise content of that duty. And then I'll blather on about reasonable foreseeability. So if you've followed that process, you can then run a word count on that section. Is it over 250? Well, you probably don't need to wind it back just yet. You can do that at the end, because maybe some of your other sections will be shorter than expected, but at least you know it's over budget. On the other hand, if the section is only 150 words long, well then it's begging for another authority. But I'll know whether to put that extra detail in or not because I have a word budget guiding me. Once you've done each of those 9 little mini assignments, you've automatically got a well-structured, logical, efficiently written assignment which answers the question and includes at least 7 different authorities. Can you see why lecturers carry on so much about structure? It's almost impossible to write a good essay without taking care of structure. And if you do take care of structure, the structure writes half the essay for you. What about exams then? Exactly the same rule applies. You still need structure, maybe even more so in an exam because you don't have time to waste. The 5 minutes that you spend at the start of an exam setting out the structure will save you 20 minutes at the end. For some subjects, you can walk in there with structures already established, printed out, ready for you to fill in the blanks. If you're doing criminal law, say, you can have blank structures for property offences or crimes against the person. You can have mini structures ready to go for the major defences. You can even include the authorities into those structures. Then when you get into the exam, it's just a matter of picking out the right structure and writing like a maniac. The only real difference with exams is that instead of budgeting words, you budget time, because time's the real limitation in an exam and no one's counting words. So if I have 3 essays to do in a 2-hour exam, that's 35 minutes each with 15 minutes of wriggle room. I'll then allocate, say, 10 minutes to each key point and a few minutes for introduction and conclusion. If I'm getting too far behind the curve, then I'm probably writing too much detail and it's time to be more efficient. So hopefully you can see that controlling the level of detail in your paper is actually super easy, provided you have a structure in place. The structure does the heavy lifting and you can concentrate on demonstrating your knowledge. I really hope that as we move through summer and get ready for the next teaching period, that this advice really helps you nail your next assessment. See you soon.